There are 1,000 stories in the Envisioners' future. This is just one of them. Hey, it's Wednesday. It's 6 o'clock and I'm Dave Coplin. Oh my God. And it's week eight of Rise of the Humans. Can you believe it? So how is everybody this week? This is week, I don't even know what week it is, 12, 13 of lockdown. So it's all starting to be a bit of a blur, which I know is a cliche, but actually it feels like things are moving. Actually, it feels like we're beginning to emerge bleary-eyed, step by step into whatever may be the, how many times are we going to get away with saying it's the post-pandemic new normal, our new favourite phrase. And really, it's on that basis that I think today's show is all about organisations who are looking to understand where their employees are at, where their customers are at. What is it that they need to do to stay relevant, to be relevant to all of us as we emerge? And bear in mind that there's this huge spectrum of people, isn't there, right? There's people who are desperate to be out, and there are people who perhaps are shielding or not desperate to be out. So it's really, how do we cater for all of those? And you know, if we were doing this before the pandemic, we would be talking about customer journeys, right? We would be thinking about how do we do this? And we'd be thinking about where are people's mindsets out? And it kind of reminded me of something that we talked about a long time. And it really was about the beautiful theory of the Funboy 3 principle of digital transformation, which, hold that thought, we're going to come back to. So you know the drill. We've got a couple of guests to help us with that conversation. We are joined again this week by Gary. So how are you doing, Gary?
Hi Dave, good to be on again.
Yeah, great. How's the new camera working out?
Let's not go there.
That was a cheap shot. I'm sorry. So along with Gary, we are absolutely delighted to have with us on the journey. We've got Mr. Adam Stafford. Adam Stafford from FreshEgg. How the devil are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Dave. Very good.
Brilliant. And Adam's here because a lot of the conversation that we're going to have is really about the potential for the evolution of the role of the digital agency. So hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. But before we do, you know the drill. I got stuff I got to get through. I had a great week this week. In fact, spent a lot of time talking to the fabulous Stuart Miles. Stuart has been for a long time. I'm going to say it's getting on for a decade. It feels like that long. Established a really great sort of platform about mobile devices and has lasted that long since mobile devices were a thing. Had a great conversation with him on his weekly podcast talking about this potential for this future world of work and a little bit of education. Great to listen to that conversation if you get a chance. I'll put the link in the notes. And also today, actually, too soon for me to give you a link, we had a great conversation with the Institute of Facilities Management, which you would think is perhaps not the most exciting of conversations you could have. But trust me, if you've ever worked with facilities management guys, they are brilliant and they actively engage and care about how do we provide the right kind of workplace for our people. And so there's lots of jokes about open plan offices, but bear in mind, these are the guys who typically aren't given very much money to try and deliver a great office experience. And as you can imagine, are having a really challenging time trying to figure out just what do we do now. So again, I will send you the link to that one as soon as you have it, but it was a great conversation. And then I'm going to give you just one final plug for this brilliant anti-webinar we delivered. It feels like a long time ago, but it was only a couple of weeks. It's still there. It's ready for you to have a look. There's some really good insight about the role of data and what you can do in terms of going forward. So on that, again, we're delighted this week to be joined again by our sponsors, Treble 3. These guys are absolutely wonderful. Do everything that you need when it comes to print and digital. I've been working with them for well over a decade. This kind of undersells them, right? But they're doing a whole bunch of stuff to help you as you get back to work, a whole bunch of stuff around social distancing, signage, whether it's for your business, your retail outlet or your office. But as you know, I love them. They do all my stuff for stage. And actually this whole thing about COVID-19 is great, but they even do these wonderful things. Like, this is my favorite actually, which is the Rise of the Humans beer mat. Actually, it's even a coaster, never mind beer mat. This is the proper stuff. So treble3.co.uk, you know that they're wonderful. They can help you with all this stuff. And we're absolutely delighted to have them with us on our journey too. So let's get back to where we were talking about. So the journey ahead, we know that we've got a range of people who are either happy to be out there or terrified to be out there. What the bloody hell are we going to do? I think we can learn this principle taught to me by the fabulous Funboy 3 back in 1984, who had a number 12 hit signal, only number 12, a fantastic cover of an old jazz record called It Ain't What You Do, It's the... You see, it's the way that you do it. You even know the bloody answer, right? And this for me is at the heart of the conversation I want to have today, because especially now more than ever, what makes you special in the mind of your customers and in the minds of your employees is got little to do with the products and services you offer and everything to do about how you choose to provide them. So it's all about the focus on how you do what you do rather than what you do. And the thing I love about that is it really makes me think about the role of digital agencies. And if you think about digital agencies, typically live in a world of marketing. They really, really understand consumer behavior. They understand patterns of consumer behavior, and they can leverage platforms, whether it's Google or Facebook or whatever. And typically they're there to help you engage and sell your brand. But I would argue that those very same skills that enable them to help you harness the power of the platform like Google or Facebook or whatever it may be are the same bloody skills that you need to understand where your employees are at and what your consumers, your customers are going to be doing. And, you know, over the years, I've been aware of lots of digital agencies and worked with many of them and love them all. But one in particular have always been really intriguing to me. And it's an organization called FreshEgg. And this is what I'm going to bring in Adam. FreshEgg to me was special because they want to go beyond just being a digital agency. And this isn't an advert for them. The reason it's a great story, I think, for this audience is the way that they think about digital transformation. So I'm going to pause there. Let me bring and reintroduce you to Adam. Adam, what I'd love you to do is, could you just give us a little bit of the creation story of FreshEgg, but also talk about the journey that you're now on, really trying to take the agency into the future in terms of changing what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been going now for about 20 years. So we're one of those digital marketing dinosaurs, been around for that long. And it all started, our heritage, I guess, is in search and web design. So we've always had audience at the heart of what we do. And I think instead of just giving you a kind of elevator pitch of FreshEgg and what it is that we do, I'd love to talk about this project that we did for the NHS a couple of years back now. And it really explains perfectly how important customer experience is, and how it kind of is the fundamental basis for how we approach our work at FreshEgg. So we were introduced to this project from the NHS. And I think one of the biggest challenges within the NHS is actually getting a project live. And what we were able to do, we were told about this objective, and everyone can relate to this. Originally, it started with men like ourselves in their 40s, who probably still believe that they're in their 20s, David, who wouldn't typically go to a doctor. And if we're encouraged to self-help, it would reduce the reliance on the NHS. So instead of you ending up in front of a GP, they wanted to help people who were going to end up being on a journey of having a mental health issue. And a lot of these things start very early on, where you wouldn't think that, for example, sleep deprivation might end up in 3 months, 12 months down the line with a serious mental health issue. So we were so grateful to get an opportunity to work on this project. And let me just quickly take you through the process of how we looked at it. So we started by looking at journey mapping and understanding all of the starting points, that if you're going to end up with bad mental well-being, where does that start? So sleep deprivation was one example that we looked at. And we were able to look on places like understand Google data. The good thing about Google, as you'll understand, people actually tell the truth to Google. They might not tell the truth when they're posting their last photo up on Facebook, but people really do tell the truth to Google. So you're able to understand a hell of a lot of data for how people are searching. So we were looking at that, and we were looking at sleep deprivation as a starting point. and even exploring areas like on Piston Heads, a forum, where we were looking at truckers who were talking about the problems that they have sleeping because their sleep patterns are all over the place. So we started looking at sleep deprivation, people who might have had relationship breakdowns, people in financial difficulties, even where they might be living, so that the fact that the environment of London is a hard place to be. So we picked up all of this data, and we were able to understand what the landscape began to look like from a digital data perspective. And the worst thing that you could do with any of these projects, and the biggest risk with a project like this, is the easiest thing to do is say, right, we'll build a new website, or we'll build a new app. And what we were able to do by looking at the data is that there's lots of really good resources already out there. So people were finding some very good resources. There's also some quite bad resources out there. But we were able to work with the NHS and identify places and apps like Sleepio, Be Mindful, and introduce these as potential partners to the NHS, where they then worked out how to clinically approve these partners to begin to work with them. So what we were able to do fundamentally was understand where people were going, and then introducing the right data at the right stages of their journey. So a brilliant project to work on, and a successful one that at the end of it, instead of reporting that we typically do on return on investment, for example, we're now in a position where we've helped hundreds of thousands of people through this service, where we can report on reduced stress levels and reduced anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. So a little snapshot.
I love that, Adam, and it's a bit problematic actually, because the context of what you were doing in that space is absolutely, serious and much needed. And I'm not going to trivialize it by any means, but you're essentially taking a marketer's view to solving this problem, and you're connecting your client to data that they wouldn't normally look at. And again, without trying to trivialize the topic, oh my God, I think this is where a lot of organizations are at right now. If they could know how their employees are feeling about returning to the office or to the working environment, if they could understand what are their customers saying about them, having had the experience, this I think is the gold dust that organizations need to be able to connect to in order to be able to provide the right kind of service.
And I think that was the key point. As soon as our customer understood that we could actually get in front of people at the right stage, so really early intervention, to put the right messages in front of people, where we could then push them to the right resources, that was certainly a trigger point for them, where they said, is this possible?
I mean, it's interesting, and what I love about the fact that you're also doing this from a perspective of being an agency, is that maybe you can't say this, but do you have to go out actively looking for these opportunities, or are you increasingly finding that clients are looking for that? They're looking for more than help me get to the top of Google, or help me engage with a bigger audience for this product?
I think in terms of the approach and having a customer-centric approach, it's something that more companies are certainly understanding. Compared to 5 years ago, it is the natural first starting point. And it's where we always start doing discovery around ensuring that they can understand exactly what their audience needs are. That is always the starting point now, whether it's building a new website, coming up with a search strategy.
Gary, have you come across much of this? Knowing the clients that you and I used to work with, and this admittedly was a long time ago, sometimes getting them to open their eyes to these different data sources is a bit of a challenge. Is that something that you come across now? Or
I think one of the things that Adam said was absolutely right. So the idea of build and they will come, it's rubbish. There's a million websites. Your problem isn't simply build and they will come. The answer has to start with understand what your customers want to achieve. Help them to do that, and they will find you. It's a completely different proposition. The idea that you can just put something out there, it will magically go to the top of the search engines. The only way that's going to happen is if you have a rubbish service, is you pay a ton of money and keep paying a ton of money to stay there. If you want to be useful, you have to get to the heart of solving the problems that your customers, citizens, users of your service want to achieve. That's no different for the NHS, which has done some brilliant work in embracing design, to a company or to a local tiler. It's exactly the same. Be clear about how you can help your customer achieve what they want to achieve. And this is the key. And I think it's great to see it happen in health. I mean, what's brilliant, Adam, is the website that you've done and the fact that it was underpinned with research. I mean, if you'd have started that now, research takes a time to do. So it's resource intensive, but it's there. I mean, the great thing, the timing is amazing, but you've done this. This is there. There's a lot of people needing that site now. So if it was needed 2 years ago, now it's off the chart in terms of the potential for this. It's unfortunate that we are in this position, but it's great that the reason is there.
It's still evolving, Gary, now. So we're able to look at micro campaigns and micro audiences that are relevant today. So we've been setting up campaigns specifically aimed towards key workers to support them. We've been looking at micro audiences around parents who have found themselves in a position where they're looking after the kids full time, stressed at home, even looking at people who have had to have got used to living away from home. So it's continually evolving, and there are different audiences coming up, and different projects that this has led to. So because this made quite a noise within the NHS, we've even spoken to cancer surgeons to see if we can work out a way of early intervention, so looking at people's search habits that before they would even know that they might have a problem, we can identify by what they're looking at and how they're feeling and what they're telling Google. We can actually start using the same approach across everything, with like people giving up smoking, child obesity. It's been quite a journey for us.
I feel pained to point out that other search engines are available.
Oh yes, of course.
Old habits die hard. And actually, so two things. One on that topic. I know both Microsoft and Google did some really fascinating research. I can remember the Microsoft stuff clearly, which is about prostate cancer and being able to detect prostate cancer in men like way earlier than any GP, simply by what they were saying to the search engine. But the bit I really want to get into on this, Adam, is, if you'll pardon my French, you're only a digital agency. If I was an organization looking to transform, surely I'd be going to a tech company or one of the big consulting companies. Why would I go to a bunch of marketers? What do you say to that?
I think it's quite interesting seeing some of these bigger consultancies getting into our space more and more now. So we're seeing like the McKinseys, Accentures going in and doing massive projects with clients around digital transformation, where they kind of get all the juices flowing, and it's an obvious project that clients need to approach. But I guess where we come in is kind of the more hands-on practical work. They don't often kind of have the resources to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. So that's where we come in now. A lot of these big consultancies are teeing up the idea, and then we're coming in and helping them actually implement it. And a lot of the time it will start the basics of ensuring that their data is robust enough that we can go in, fix that, so you can begin to measure and benchmark or whatever it might be.
And I also, in my experience, as good as all of those organizations are, a lot of them don't have the same level of expertise when it comes to understanding the big engines, like Google and like Facebook, that traditionally, an agency like yours, that's bread and butter to you guys.
Absolutely.
And I think the value that has when you're trying to understand, and remember, you know, when I was thinking about why I wanted to get you on and have this conversation, again, I was pointing my mind sort of in the place of where a lot of businesses are now, which is, you know, like, you know, my favorite pub and restaurant company is a classic example. We really want to get it right, and we want to make sure that our customers feel safe. We want to make sure our employees feel safe, but equally, you know, you come to a pub or restaurant to have a great time, not to be terrified by a bunch of, you know, signage or whatever it might be telling you that you may or may not be about to die. So this whole thing about lighting up those signals, I think, becomes crucially important about how you do it. And I think the insight that agencies like you can bring to them is crucial to part of that story. Maybe, you know, as part of that, if we sort of expand beyond just really the lockdown and how people understand that, do you think that, you know, have you seen your clients starting to change, maybe mature a little in their approach to how they want to, you know, harness the potential, the opportunity that an agency brings to them?
Absolutely. And I think our role certainly, but the role of an agency has evolved a lot over the past 3 to 5 years. You know, the kind of traditional agency retainer where 5 years ago, as an agency, you might wanted to be in a position where you could own everything and do everything within a retainer. A lot of our work now has become project-based, where we're going in and consulting with the client, but we're helping them by sharing the value of our experience. We're helping them to upskill and in-house and in-source and do the sort of work that we used to do as an agency, the kind of the grunt work, where we're training their staff and how to do that work now. And then we're taking more of a consultative lead, going in and helping with the strategy, helping with all the planning. So it's been a big move for us. And we're even now, we're helping with recruitment, which I never thought we'd do even 12 months ago. But we're going out and we're helping our clients find the talent and actually go out and recruit people for them, which has been a massive change for us.
And that's an incredibly bold move, isn't it? Because you could argue that you're trying to, you know, result in doing less work for the client.
It was a scary one. It was one I probably sat on for about 3 months before I even had the guts to speak to the rest of the board. But it's just a natural way in which we're going. We found ourselves having to sit on in interviews to make sure that people could be correctly technically challenged within an interview, because they didn't have the skills to do that themselves in-house. So it was just a natural next step for us.
I mean, I love that you did, and it speaks, Gary, you'll remember this. I mean, one of my frustrations as a consultant, and it's understandable, I guess, but was always being treated like a bloody supplier by your clients. Do you know what I mean? And you're just, what I wanted to be was, I wanted to be on the team and I wanted to be a trusted member of the team. I had to earn that trust, to be fair. So I wasn't just walking in the room. But there's so much can happen when you build that partnership. And so, you know, Gary, let's talk to you first, and then I want to come back to Adam about the point on partnership. Do you think that potential is there to, you know, by leaning into what the client's needs is to build that partnership? Does that give you the sort of any better results in the relationship?
Absolutely. Agencies play a really critical role. So first of all, if you want to do a change initiative, one of the things you're going to be measured on is the success of that and the speed of that success. If you want to get the ball rolling, get an agency involved, get the experts in, get them to help you, and be very clear when you want to engage them. I need to deliver success quickly. I have these resources, I have this time. Be open with the agency, they'll help you. Be clear about what's on the table today and what's to play for going forward. That's the first thing. But the idea of upskilling, of working with the agency to upskill is absolutely brilliant. And it has the opposite effect. So what happens is it moves from being a transactional relationship to a partnership relationship. I know we've built in my previous company and where we are, those are the relationships we want. We want people that we can trust, we can work with, the ones that we're open about, you know, what work is on the table, what isn't. But that long-term success is built by enabling me, not constantly trying to put your hand in my pocket. If you're clear about what value you can bring, you're clear about what you can share, then we have a trusted relationship. And I think it is really worth saying that there's a very big difference on a number of levels between, I'm not going to mention any names, but you look at one of the big 4, 5, 6 consultancies who all now have deep design practices. If you engage those, a couple of things are going to happen. One, you're going to have a very, very big bill very quickly. And two, that's a definite. But the other one is, are you going to have someone in who has an investment in you being successful? I question that. I'd always go for those smaller agencies. Find someone who's interested in working with you, who wants to build that long-term relationship. Because where they don't have the skills, what will happen is those other agencies, and I know you did this, Adam, with the NHS engagement, those other agencies will go, we need specialists in this area. We're not going to fib to you and bring in John from the other team who needs to make his number. We're going to bring in another great small agency to help us, because our success is linked to their success. So we're going to bring in the best. So working with a small agency doesn't limit your capability. What it does is it will help you build a network to bring in the best capabilities. So you'll get that level of expertise, but you'll have a number of smaller organizations focused on making you successful, not just on ticking their number, which is really, it's still one of the downsides of very big companies with design functions.
No, totally. So, Adam, thinking about the audience, and the audience is, people, again, leaders of organizations looking to, how are we going to help the organization through this? What skills do I need? Is there any sort of advice that you would give those people? What are the questions they should be asking about the skills they need and how they should approach going forward?
It really depends on the project. And it depends on the size of the company, the size of the team that they can get in-house. I think the most successful relationships that we have definitely have those key people internally who get digital, who can understand it, who can champion digital as a service. The kind of not T-shaped people, but almost the pie-shaped people who have had really deep specialisms, and not just one, but maybe 2 or 3 over the years, who've got that experience, who can come in and lead a team. But I don't think there's one particular answer on this is the skill set that you need. It really depends on the work, I guess, in hand.
And from your perspective, Gary, what do you think that leaders need to be thinking about in regards to this?
I think the most important thing for a leader is make sure you have a clear mandate for what you're going to do. So be really clear with the people who you are having to deliver for. What outcome do they want? The whole point of this is you need to know what the outcome that you need to achieve is. You don't need to know the details of how to get there. So if how would this work in reality? So I know my website's not being effective. I know I need to engage more people. Ultimately, I want more people to visit my site and buy it. I don't need to know the details. That's Adam's job. Yeah. So all I need is the buy-in from my company to go on this journey, to engage someone who doesn't know how to do this, and the support in terms of the money, access to the people internally, the ability to start to change to allow Adam to be successful. It's not the worst thing you can do if you're in an organization and you're thinking, I don't know how to do this, and I can do it without an agency. What's most likely to happen is you will run out of trust, you will run out of resources, and you will fail to deliver and the patience will run out with you before you've delivered. So understand what you need to do, have an honest conversation with Adam, and he'll go, it's this sort of size, it's this sort of amount, and these are the options of how we can do it. There isn't one answer. He said that before. So come with a clear understanding of what you know, and as far as you can, the ability to allow Adam and the team to make it happen.
I think it's a culture thing as well. So certainly it's very rare that you get the most senior C-suite understanding the ins and outs of technical digital marketing, but I think an appreciation is really key. But also, I think culturally, having that, having the confidence to kind of have a test and learn culture within the organisation is really impossible. It is really important, because it becomes impossible without that kind of support. You know, you can go out and you can do something successful, but equally, if something doesn't work, then you need to be able to have the confidence behind you that that's okay, that didn't work that time, but we can learn from that. Sometimes some of the projects that don't work are equally as important as the ones that do, so you can learn from them. But having that, test and learn culture within the organisation is important.
And I love that, because one of the reasons I think I ended up really being intrigued by the FreshEgg story when it comes to sort of the transition from marketing to transformation is, you know, I was an IT guy, right? For a long time I was an IT guy, and it was only by fluke when I got pushed into the online world and started, you know, really engaging with that whole sort of digital experience. And this would be, you know, early 2010 and that sort of time, where you realize that actually this is kind of where it's at. So when I saw you guys doing this and starting to connect those dots, I was really fascinated by it. Now, you know, and look, I know we've talked a lot about FreshEgg, and I know, Adam, you're here, but as a sort of a representative of your industry, is that something that you still find pretty unique? Are you the only guys doing that? Are you seeing more and more, you know, the agencies beginning to sort of start to walk down that road to transformation?
I think so, because it is a natural next step. And I think if agencies aren't evolving to support that, they're just going to be running out of opportunities to work with clients moving forward. I guess one of the biggest changes for us, David, over the past, 5 years, it's just ensuring that we have those senior people. We're more senior heavy within our organisation, because it's that experience that you're ultimately selling to your clients, sharing the value of your experience, so your clients don't have to make as many mistakes. They can learn from what we've done in the past. But yeah, it is a consultative approach now, and the majority of our work, instead of it just being retainers that happen month in, month out, I think for many agencies, they're seeing that the majority of their revenue is now coming from specific projects. There'll be an objective, a challenge, and that's just the way work's moving now.
No, exactly. And look, I want to start to wrap things up because we're about at time. Interesting, we had some engagement before the show once I'd done the trailer just announcing we're talking about the future of digital agents and all that, and I had a sort of comment from Trenton, so I hope you're still watching, Trenton. If not, you'll catch it on the catch up. And it was really, you know, are we actually going to hear about the future of the agency, or is it just kind of more of the same? And frankly, I mean, and Trenton, I'd love to know what you think, but I think what we're talking about here is this transition. You know, I've talked in the past about, can we get rid of the word digital, because it's kind of a bit unnecessary now, because it's kind of, you know, it's marketing, it's digital marketing, it doesn't matter, it's all marketing, it's transformation, it's digital, not, it's just bloody transformation. And I think to see you guys lean into it as an industry is really fascinating, and I would love to think that you know what you can bring for the organizations is this true understanding of how that world really operates and what it can do for their business. And we talked in the context of the NHS. I've talked about the context of helping them understand the post-pandemic new normal. That's twice. I'm sure I'm going to go to hell for that one. It has to be the way forward. And so I'd love to hear from you, you know, out there in the audience. I'd love to hear from your experience and what you can do in terms of the agencies. On that, I am going to wrap up. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure that you give us some of your time, and whether it's at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday night or it's whenever it's a time that's convenient for you, that's fine by me. It's just lovely to have you with us. We're going to keep banging away at this content. We're going to be talking more and more about opportunities, about organizations, and about how they can approach the best way out of this situation and beyond in terms of what we're going to do. That's it for us this week. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you, and we will hope to see you again next week. And now I've got to find the right button. It's always the hard challenge is to find the right button. I've found it now. See you next week.
There are 1,000 stories in the Envisioners' future. This is just one of them.